Great, thanks. And we talk a lot about Zora, but the reality that we see for our customers in our personal lives is that we now live in a subscription economy. We see it in our everyday lives. We see it in our business lives. We don't buy CDs anymore. We're subscribing to Pandora and Spotify. We don't even need to own a car anymore. We can use services like Uber and Lyft. You can even get by for a period of time without a house using services like Airbnb and HomeAway. We've completely shifted our consumption behaviors from ownership to outcomes. And this phenomenon, what we talk about with the subscription economy, really it's not only a US or North American centric phenomenon. We see this in the United Kingdom and across EMEA, where 78% of the UK are subscribed to at least one service. We see this in France. 50% of the people in France are moving away from traditional ownership. And of course, here in the US, where I'm based, we've already spent $420 billion on subscriptions. So to help quantify this, we dug into the data, we went back, we looked at all of the information that's flowing through those 800 plus customers that we have running on our platform today, and we compared the revenue growth rates with those of the S&P 500. And it was a really interesting finding where subscription businesses are growing 9 times faster than the S&P 500. Now, growth is obviously something many companies focus on, and it's incredibly important. But for a subscription business, you also need to look at churn. For revenue to grow, customers must renew and upgrade at a rate that outpaces their churn. And churn can be a result of many different reasons. A weak customer service, potentially a poorly upgraded product, a better offer from the competition, maybe even a flat-out business failure. So we went back and we wanted to dig deeper into the customer churn rates when we looked at the subscription economy index, and we found that the churn rates actually varied not only by business model but by industry. We saw B2B or business-to-business companies have a churn rate of around 24%. We saw business-to-consumer companies slightly higher at 31%. And then we saw a finer split when you looked at different industries. Corporate services at 26%, telecommunications 24%, SaaS 22%, media 28%. And I'd encourage the folks on the call from a variety of different industries, a variety of different verticals, think about how you might stack up against these churn rates where, at Zora, we work to really try to provide benchmarks across the widest variety and the widest set of data available for companies that are running subscription-based business models. So Cindy, I'll turn it back over to you where we can talk through a little bit about the predictive analytics and AI and the impact that could have when we think about the subscription economy.
Thanks, Matthew. So first, I'm not going to dive down to all these little stats, but they are little gems that we've certainly been mining and feel there's a lot of value. When you look at the sort of growth in the predictive churn and analytics market, what to me is the most compelling is the fact that productivity increases that can be derived from these advanced analytic and advanced data sciences and AI and machine learning approaches. McKinsey's gone on record in saying that wake up. If you're not applying these methods, you're not likely to grow at the speed that's potentially there, given the dynamics in the industry. The other factor is that companies that analyze and utilize the data have 23 times better customer acquisition experience and 6 times higher customer retention and 19 times higher profitability. So at the end of the day, with the complexity of the world moving at the pace that it's moving, having the opportunity to basically drive preventative strategies, which can be derived from predictive churn. Top quartile SMB companies, which in Canada I think is important to note that about over 90% of our economy here is based on small businesses and have annual customer churn of 31% and an annual revenue churn of 16%, while enterprise-focused companies have an annual customer churn, depending again on the business model, can be 14%. Obviously in the SaaS market it's higher, and in the sense of the subscription side, sometimes the average can reach up as high as 25%. This particular slide just kind of sets the stage about our perspectives about data science and ways simply to look at this without getting caught up into all the language. I don't think anybody's going to dispute the fact that data is everywhere, and whether it's small or big. Sometimes people talk about big data, but when you actually implement or deploy some of these solutions, you find that there's little data that's actually complete or the quality that you need, that's so fundamental to derive and build baseline methods with machine learning. And, so I think it's really important to ensure that that kind of baseline and consistency and sustainability within the leadership team, focusing and recognizing that data is really a strategic asset. The other factor is very important to ensure that once you've got those foundations in place clearly, is that they're actionable. We can spend so much time with visualizations, advanced BI, bringing predictive views in, but if we can't take the next stage to actually guide them to the source of the insight, even give guidance as what one might need to do to actually drive a more, I call it a secure an outcome that will drive the outcomes that based on best practices, etc. And to me, at the end of the day, if you can't drive the behavioral, in the index in some respects, then we've kind of not been very successful in terms of what we wanted to achieve. There's nothing more important. I know you'd all agree that retaining your customers is very, very key. And so that's why it's very important to really ensure that you've got the foundational infrastructure, if you're in a subscription-based model, to actually be taking advantage of the kind of solutions that Zora has. So I'm going to turn it back to Matt to drill down a little bit more about some of the leading indicators that they've found that can really drive the right behaviors and the conversion success, retention success, which is really top of mind. So back to you, Matt.
Yeah, thanks. And, I love seeing all the, different metrics and benchmarks against churn. I mean, it is one of the things that subscription companies are really focusing on. Like we mentioned, growth is important, but making sure that we keep the customers that we have and expand their lifetime value. At Zora, we want to provide productized solutions to help our customers do this. So that's where Insights comes in. Insights is a product that we've built on Zora's platform, and it allows customers to compute really their most valuable leading indicators for subscription companies. This includes not only their trends of recurring revenue, but their customers' lifetime value, their net retention, and really important is their churn rates. The way that we do this is we're already built on Zora, which is our customer source of truth for all of their financial data. It's the system that sends out the invoice and collects the payment. This is where they know they can trust the customer's identity, up-to-date terms, their contracted values, and what have they been billed and what have they actually collected. And we combine that with behavioral data, and that could be from a variety of sources, back-end systems, third-party applications like a mixed panel or a segment. And by pulling all of those together, within Insights, we compute over 60 different standard indicators, things like intensity of usage, sessions per week. We produce tailored indicators that might be specific to a customer's own business. I think a lot of these examples come down to contracted utilization rates, the lifetime value of their customers based on different metrics and different discount values that different companies might have. And then the third bucket for us are our predictive indicators, things like churn probability, engagement score. And normally when we talk to folks about the productized solution, there's definitely a ton of value in getting your key indicators for a subscription company, being able to blend those with behavioral data. But the conversation very quickly goes to, hey, help me understand more about the predictive indicators. What can you tell me about what's likely to happen versus what's already happened? So to actually do that, we're really excited to have Carl Gold on the call today. He's our chief data scientist at Zora, and he runs this function for us internally and works very closely with the product team to actually put these models into practice. So Carl, I would love for you to discuss more about the predictive scoring approaches that we've taken here in the Insights product.
Thanks, Matt. So as Matt was telling you, Zora Insights provides a variety of predictive indicators. Today we're going to focus on two, the churn probability and the engagement score, which as you'll see are closely related. The churn probability in Zora Insights is an account-specific forecast for the probability that an account will churn on their next renewal. Now it's predictive, meaning it makes accurate forecasts about the future, And as I said, these are account specific. So that means that the predictive model analyzes all of your account actions and usage data and takes all those factors in consideration when it predicts the churn probability. Lastly, I want to point out that these probabilities are calibrated to match your company's actual churn rate. Can we stay on the last slide, please? I want to introduce first also the engagement score. Now, when we deployed the churn probability for some of our customers, we found that not all users were comfortable with the concepts of probability. And furthermore, they weren't sure what constituted a good or a bad churn probability. Now, that's why we created the engagement score. And that's an easy to use summary of the account health, ranking the accounts on a 1 to 100 range. So the accounts with the lowest probability of renewing and the highest probability of churn get the 1 engagement score, and the accounts with the highest probability of renewing, the lowest probability of churn, get 100 engagement score. And that turns the churn probability into an easy to interpret metric for people, say, in sales or customer success who aren't really, that familiar with probabilities. And we think that's very important because interpretability is really a requirement in this area, as Cindy already pointed out. At the end of the day, you have to convert these predictions into actions. And if you don't use an interpretable predictive model, the people whose job it is to do that won't know what to do in specific cases. Now that's why Zuora provides a score decomposition, which is illustrated in this slide. As I mentioned, a variety of behaviors can go into predicting churn. And in this simplified example, we're considering just 3 behaviors: mobile logins, videos published, and social shares. So this is for a hypothetical social service of some kind. Now, in the top pane, you can see that the engagement score for this account is listed as 85, which is a pretty healthy score. But what our score decomposition does is breaks it down into points in each area of behavior. And so for this example, you see that they get 54 points for mobile logins, 3 points for videos published, and 28 points for social shares. But what that shows you in this particular case is that even a strong account can have weak points, which you might want to work on to increase your engagement. Conversely, weak accounts might have strong points, which you can use as tools to increase their engagement. And so that's why the score decomposition really helps you to plan specific actions targeted at different segments of your accounts. Now, another aspect I want to bring up of Zuora Insights approach is our metric-first methodology. For this, I have to back up and explain for some of you how data scientists are trained. Now, data scientists in an academic setting typically get their data given to them, and they're not free to change the data. And then they're told in their coursework to experiment with different algorithms. So many naive young data scientists have an algorithms-first mentality when approaching problems. They think the best way to get accuracy is to try a bunch of different algorithms and pick the best one. But as experienced data scientists learn, in the real world, accuracy is achieved by good metrics or features going into the algorithm. And the algorithmic choice is actually rather secondary. Now, and many books and articles by the most experienced data scientists in academia and industry corroborate our experience in this area. But still, many companies are focused entirely on the algorithm. Now, in the data shown on this slide, I'm comparing the accuracy in terms of the top decile uplift using 2 different algorithms and 2 different sets of data, or rather 2 representations of the data for one specific company. The 2 algorithms are a classical regression and a modern black box AI algorithm. And the 2 versions of the data are what I call the standard features, which is basically the metrics that the client proposed when they became a customer. And then I compare that to what I'm calling the insights features, which are the metrics and features that we produced using our methodology and process. What you can see on the left is that using a simple set of features, the black box algorithm does outperform the regression. However, on the right, you can see that when the features are improved, not only does the regression match the black box performance, But the black box model improves significantly as well. And this is what we typically see, and just illustrates how it's actually the way you turn your data into metrics that has a very profound influence on the predictive algorithm. So lastly, I'll just make one customer example. One of our most successful customers on Insights today is BizLibrary. They're the leading provider of online employee training and e-learning solutions. They've been using Insights for a couple of years now, and over that time, they increased their renewal rates by 16%, which means reducing their churn rate, of course. And at the same time, they were able to increase their upsells, increase customer engagement, and also increase the net promoter scores given by their customers. So this demonstrates the results of using advanced churn prediction with good metrics and interpretable model. It's bringing real value to our customers who, in the new online subscription economy, they really need to have robust churn risk strategies to keep the growth advancing. So I'm going to turn it back over to Cindy now, who's going to discuss more about SalesChoice's experiences in predictive churn and introduce a little bit more about SalesChoice.